In the hushed corridors of wealth and power, Michael Harrington seemed untouchable. A towering figure in Manhattan society, he possessed the kind of influence that opened any door until one terrible night sealed them all forever. At first glance, his life sparkled like crystal, complete with a devoted wife, Sophia, who carried his child, and a rumored mistress whose existence flickered on the edges of high society gossip. But as thunderous secrets unravel, everything collapses in catastrophic fashion: a hidden emergency contact, a single fateful phone call, and the pregnant wife forced to identify her husband's body. Prepare for betrayal, heartbreak, and shocking revelations. The golden lights of New York City twinkled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Michael Harrington's penthouse apartment in the Upper East Side. From this vantage point, he surveyed a sprawling urban kingdom of opportunity. Michael had once been just a bright boy from a small town in Ohio, daydreaming about success. Now, he was a household name in financial circles, the CEO of Harrington Strategic Investments, a firm that had soared to dizzying heights under his leadership. At precisely 7 each evening, Michael's routine rarely changed: a glass of 25-year-old Macallan Scotch, a leisurely scan of the day's stock market performance, and a quick glance over the tabloids. Though he pretended to scoff, he secretly enjoyed seeing rumors swirl about him. The life of a multi-millionaire invited speculation, some accurate, some not. Yet one piece of gossip would soon prove to be disturbingly true. For almost 3 years, Michael had maintained a secret affair with Natalia Moretti, a raven-haired beauty who was as mysterious as she was captivating. Tonight, the sleek granite countertops in the kitchen reflected the warm glow of pendant lights as Michael tapped his phone, scheduling a car for a late-night rendezvous. He moved seamlessly through the open living room, adjusting a crystal vase of fresh white roses, his usual gift to his wife Sophia, who was 6 months pregnant with their first child. He wanted to keep up the appearance of a devoted husband, or at least quell any suspicions from prying eyes. Sophia Harrington was no fool. A successful art curator at the Morgan Stanley Collection, she had an eye for beauty and a heart for loyalty. She suspected her husband's fidelity, wavered the moment she noticed how often he'd vanish after board meetings or philanthropic galas. Lately, each call he took, in hushed tones, left her with a hollow feeling, though she tried to mask her heartbreak for the sake of their unborn baby. On this crisp autumn evening, Sophia was seated on the plush emerald sofa, sorting through a stack of pastel-colored baby shower invitations. The Harrington name was enough to ensure that their event would be the talk of the season. Yet even the anticipation of motherhood couldn't chase away her nagging worry. Michael had grown distant, and the once effervescent glow of their life together felt dimmer each day. A vibrating ring on Michael's phone broke the silence. He glanced at the screen and placed it face down on the marble counter, ignoring it with an air of practiced indifference. Sophia saw the name N. Moretti flash on the screen's reflection for a split second. Her heart skipped. She pretended not to notice. Instead, Sophia mustered a smile, massaging her growing belly. "Honey," she said softly, "are you sure you'll be able to make it to Dr. Hoffman's appointment tomorrow? He wants to discuss the birth plan." Michael forced a reassuring grin. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," he said, though something about his tone lacked conviction. In truth, Michael had promised Natalia he would help finalize the down payment on a new midtown condo, a lavish present he would never dare reveal to his wife. Though the place was in Natalia's name, it was Michael who discreetly funneled the funds. Before bedtime, Michael strolled toward the guest bedroom that now doubled as Sophia's temporary art studio. He wanted to bury his guilt in comforting small talk, but found himself locked out by her silence. Through the door, he heard the faint strains of a classical violin piece. She loved Johann Sebastian Bach's Cello Suite No. 1. It brought memories of more harmonious times of years past when their marriage had been simpler and free of betrayal. As the evening drew to a close, the city lights turned from golden to silver. Sophia fell asleep, imagining a brighter future for her baby while ignoring the soft ring of Michael's phone in the living room. It rang 3 times and then stopped. Far across town, a solitary woman also watched the city from a high-rise window, her phone in hand. This was Natalia Moretti, the secret in Michael Harrington's perfectly curated life, the one who had just tried to reach him, longing for the moment he'd whisper sweet nothings into her ear again. She had no idea how the coming weeks would transform all of their lives forever. To understand the labyrinth Michael Harrington found himself in, one must first journey back to his roots. Born in Dayton, Ohio, he was the son of a factory worker and a school teacher. His ambitions stretched far beyond the dusty roads and modest row houses of his hometown. He pored over financial newspapers and economics textbooks at an age when other kids were consumed with video games. A scholarship led him to the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, where he forged a reputation as an investment prodigy. Upon graduation, Michael attracted the attention of top Wall Street firms, including Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. Ultimately, he settled at Morgan Stanley, climbing the corporate ladder at lightning speed. During an internal charity event, he met Sophia, a talented art history graduate, who had curated an art exhibition to raise funds for a children's hospital. Their attraction was instantaneous, and soon they were a power couple, combining his financial brilliance with her artistic vision. Even the wealthiest circles marveled at how swiftly Michael accumulated fortunes. He seemed to have the Midas touch. One well-timed call he made in 2012 about shorting a major tech company that was rumored to inflate its user data brought him a tidy profit of $40 million almost overnight. Stories like these only fueled his legend. People whispered he was unstoppable, a genius with a heart, thanks to the philanthropic events he hosted annually. Through it all, Sophia stood by his side, glamorous yet grounded. Their wedding at the Plaza Hotel was a high society affair that made the society pages for weeks. Corporate bigwigs and even philanthropic heavy hitters like Bill and Melinda Gates attended. On the surface, everything was perfection. But as Michael built Harrington's strategic investments, something shifted. Success demanded more hours, more travel, more personal sacrifices. Sophia's schedule at the Morgan Stanley collection was demanding too. She curated exhibitions that traveled internationally. The seeds of distance were planted, and neither one recognized them until it was too late. Over the years, Michael grew addicted to the thrill of acquisition, bigger contracts, more lavish properties. He bought a summer home in the Hamptons and a villa on Lake Como. But beyond the tangible trophies of success, Michael craved something intangible, a sense of ultimate control. That hunger was what led him into Natalia Moretti's path. An Italian-American rising star in fashion, merchandising, Natalia had a mesmerizing presence. She first met Michael at a Milan runway show where he was sponsoring an up-and-coming designer. Their chemistry was immediate. In a moment of hubris and perhaps boredom, Michael pursued her. What began as flirtation over champagne flutes at a Venetian after-party soon morphed into clandestine rendezvous in Manhattan. At first, Michael told himself it was just an escape, a secret thrill. But as time went on, Natalia's presence became more integrated into his life. He paid for her extravagant shopping sprees in Paris, funded her startup fashion boutique in downtown Manhattan, and promised her the world. It wasn't just about physical attraction. Michael loved being admired for his power and wealth, and Natalia fed that craving perfectly. Meanwhile, Sophia sensed her husband's emotional drift. Yet with so much at stake, family reputation and her pregnancy, she clung to the hope that once the baby arrived, Michael would revert to the doting partner she remembered. She attended gala after gala, putting on a brave face, never letting her composure crack before the cameras and society reporters. The Harrington brand was polished and perfect, and she refused to tarnish it. Behind the scenes, Michael's duplicity expanded. He arranged for Natalia to be listed as his emergency contact, something Natalia insisted upon when she discovered how far they had gone with each other. It was a step beyond mere secrecy. It was a quiet declaration that she mattered more to him than the woman carrying his child. It was a risky, foolish move that would have dire consequences. That moment, when Michael placed Natalia's name on critical documents, sealed a fate he couldn't begin to imagine. The official forms were stowed away in a digital cloud, overshadowed by headlines of his successes and philanthropic achievements. But the clock was ticking. Soon, a single phone call would expose everything. While the city never slept, Michael's days began to blur. On Tuesdays, he would breakfast with Sophia, reviewing baby names and pediatricians. On Thursdays, he and Natalia would escape to a private suite at the Ritz-Carlton, making grand plans for future escapades. Each compartment of his life was carefully sealed off until fissures started to form. Sophia was no stranger to heartbreak. She'd been engaged once before meeting Michael, but that relationship crumbled under the weight of distance and mistrust. She saw similar warning signs with her husband: the vacant stares, the contrived excuses, the lingering cologne that didn't smell like his usual brand. Instead of confrontation, she tried to coax him back with warmth. She organized intimate dinners, invited his closest friends, and even suggested a romantic baby moon to Turks and Caicos. Michael always seemed too busy missing most events. "The market's volatile," he'd say. "Clients are depending on me." The philanthropic event that would change everything took place on a Thursday evening at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, a charity auction for funding after-school art programs. Sophia helped organize it, dedicating weeks to ensure every detail was impeccable. Michael was supposed to be the keynote speaker, but he arrived nearly an hour late, looking flustered and smelling faintly of perfume that was definitely not Sophia's. He delivered his speech about nurturing young artistic minds with practiced eloquence. Cameras flashed, capturing the handsome millionaire in a tailored Armani suit, delivering hope to the city's youth. The crowd applauded. But Sophia, her trained eyes missing nothing, noticed the small pink lipstick mark on his shirt collar. After the applause died down, Sophia confronted Michael in a corner of the museum's Egyptian wing. The ancient relics of pharaohs and queens loomed above them in silent witness. "Michael, who were you with before you came here?" she asked, keeping her voice low and calm. He hesitated, mouth opening and closing like a fish, gasping for air. "I was with a client," he finally managed. "A last-minute meeting. Very important." Sophia's gaze went to the lipstick stain. A client wearing pink lipstick. Her voice trembled with a mix of anger and despair. Michael stuttered something incomprehensible before launching into a weak excuse about business dinners and networking. Sophia, unwilling to cause a scene, simply said, "We'll talk at home." Even the grand corridors of the museum couldn't contain her heartbreak. She quietly left the event, tears threatening to spill. Michael, rummaging for solutions, decided to catch his breath in the museum's garden courtyard. Oddly enough, that same evening, Natalia texted him, "Everything's set for tomorrow. Our flight to Miami, XN." She accompanied it with a suggestive selfie. Heart-pounding, Michael contemplated if the risk was worth it. But his addiction to the adrenaline of secrecy outweighed all caution. He texted back a simple yes. The next morning, instead of attending a prenatal checkup with Sophia, Michael flew to Miami with Natalia. He missed Dr. Hoffman's appointment, where Sophia sat alone, devastated and humiliated. She feigned an excuse to the doctor. "He's caught up in an urgent client meeting," but internally, she felt the walls of her life crumbling. In Miami, Michael and Natalia indulged in a whirlwind of fine dining, sunbathing at a private cabana, and late-night dancing. The city's neon lights matched the electric lust in their eyes. Their hotel suite was a luxurious refuge, an escape from reality. Yet amid the extravagance, Michael sensed a twinge of guilt, remembering Sophia's delicate condition. He told himself he'd make it up to her. He always had money, lavish gifts, and apologies at the ready. But each choice to stay with Natalia chipped away at the foundation of his marriage. As they parted ways at the airport, Natalia murmured, "One day, you'll leave her for me, right?" It wasn't the first time she asked this, but today it sounded more like a demand than a question. Michael hesitated, eventually saying, "We'll see." That two-word answer was all Natalia needed to keep her illusions alive. After all, her name was on his emergency contact form. She believed it was only a matter of time before she was the official Mrs. Harrington. Little did they know that destiny had set a tragic stage, one that not even all Michael's millions could prevent. Natalia Moretti's family emigrated from Italy when she was a child, bringing with them old-world flair and an unwavering belief in their daughter's potential. From a young age, Natalia was applauded for her stunning looks, but she refused to be defined solely by appearances. She studied fashion merchandising at New York University, dreaming of launching her own label. She was fiercely ambitious, using every advantage she could find. Meeting Michael Harrington felt like stepping onto a bullet train, heading straight to success. He had the capital to back her ambitions, and his business savvy was magnetic. In him she saw not just a wealthy patron, but a man whose attention promised the exhilarating glow of power. When she discovered he was married, it gave her pause, but only for a fleeting moment. In her mind, everything about Sophia was intangible, a distant figure overshadowed by Natalia's immediate connection with Michael. Over time, Natalia's life began to revolve around Michael's schedule. She adjusted her appointments, fashion shows, and even family gatherings to accommodate his availability. He whisked her away on private jets, introduced her under pseudonyms or half-truths to important contacts, and showered her with gifts. A diamond choker for her birthday, a financed boutique in Soho, and the promise of a midtown condo. She learned to relish the secrecy, likening it to a romance novel where the heroine wins the heart of the powerful man. Still, the question of Sophia gnawed at her. What will happen when the baby arrives, she'd ask Michael. He would sigh, run a hand through his hair, and offer vague assurances like, "Things will change, trust me." In Natalia's mind, change meant a future where they'd eventually go public, free of shame or deceit. Tension brewed between them. Whenever Michael's phone buzzed with calls from Sophia, or when Natalia scrolled through social media feeds showcasing the lavish baby shower Sophia was planning, a swirl of jealousy and resentment took root. Natalia believed she was the rightful partner, the real muse behind Michael's success. Her conviction grew dangerously firm when Michael listed her as his emergency contact. At the time, it felt like a hidden coronation. She thought, "This is it. He's chosen me." Beyond her desire for wealth, Natalia craved validation. She had always felt overshadowed by her glamorous older sister, who married an Italian soccer star and lived in Milan. Whenever Natalia called home, she painted her life in glimmering terms. "Michael adores me. I'm one step away from launching my own line." Not once did she mention that Michael was married. Her sister, oblivious, cheered her on. But each moment of stolen bliss was tainted by the knowledge that Michael would eventually leave her side for nights at the Harrington penthouse. The clock would read 100 a.m., and Natalia would be alone, perched on a velvet chaise lounge, staring out her window at Manhattan's skyline. She was as lonely as she was ambitious. An undercurrent of desperation guided her. She sensed Michael's hold on her life was absolute. He was her financial and emotional anchor. Yet the more she demanded clarity, the more elusive he became. She started calling him at odd hours, claiming she had an emergency at the boutique just to hear his voice. Instead of reassurance, she often got short, irritated replies. A wedge formed between them, threatening her fantasies. As the autumn turned to winter, a chill settled over their once-burning passion. Still, Natalia remained intoxicated by the prospect of being the one for Michael. In her eyes, if he listed her on the official documents that married couples usually share, then surely it meant Sophia was no longer his priority. Neither Natalia nor Michael imagined how that small administrative decision, the name on an emergency contact form, could one day spark an explosion that destroyed everything. Sophia Harrington had been a straight-A student at a prestigious New England prep school. Raised by successful yet loving parents, she learned to value both intellectual pursuits and genuine human connection. She was selected for an elite internship in London's Tate Modern before being recruited by Morgan Stanley's corporate art program. Hers was a life filled with curated exhibitions, meaningful collaborations with emerging artists, and a mild but persistent longing for genuine romance. When she met Michael Harrington, her world transformed. She was drawn to his energy, his unstoppable drive. Their courtship was swift dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants, weekend getaways to Napa Valley, and whispered conversations about building an empire together. Love felt easy, and so did trust, until the day she realized she was pregnant. Far from a surprise, their pregnancy had been something they planned, or so Sophia thought. Michael mentioned wanting to be a dad before 40, and it was the first time she had seen vulnerability behind his ambitious facade. She embraced the possibility of a baby as the missing puzzle piece that would complete their picture-perfect life. As her belly grew, so did her suspicions. Michael's absences became more frequent, his excuses more transparent. Her attempts to reach out through text messages, calls, or candlelit dinners were often met with cool disinterest. Yet Sophia refused to jump to conclusions. Her friends, particularly her best friend Lillian Perez, urged her to investigate. Lillian was a sharp-eyed journalist for a local arts magazine and claimed she had a nose for secrets. But Sophia waved off the suggestion, yearning to protect the facade of her marriage. Around her, the world believed the Harringtons were an invincible duo. She received daily calls from philanthropic event planners seeking her presence. Her social media feed was awash with compliments on her glowing pregnancy. Even the famed designer Marc Jacobs extended an invitation for her to attend a private showing of his new collection. She kept going day after day, fulfilling the role of supportive wife while her anxieties swelled. Late one night, Unable to sleep, Sophia climbed out of bed to fetch some herbal tea. Passing Michael's study, she saw the faint light of his computer screen. Michael was typing an email, his posture tense. Curious, she stepped closer and glimpsed a message to Moretti before he swiftly minimized the window. Her heart pounded. Something inside her told her not to confront him yet. The truth needed more time to surface. After that night, Sophia sought solace in her unborn child. She talked softly to her belly, apologizing for the tension in the home. "I promise you," she murmured, "I'll give you the best life, no matter what." Her maternal instincts were awakening, giving her strength she never knew she had. And so, despite her heartbreak, she put on a brave face. She continued to oversee the baby shower arrangements, picking up flowers from the same florist that did the Rockefeller Center holiday displays. She also quietly met with an attorney, posing hypothetical questions about child custody, just in case. The attorney, a steely-eyed woman named Andrea Reynolds, offered no sugar-coated promises but outlined the steps she'd need to protect herself and the baby if things turned sour. Deep down, Sophia still carried a flicker of hope that Michael would step back from the precipice. Perhaps once he held his newborn child in his arms, the gravity of fatherhood would anchor him in their marriage. Despite her insecurities, she loved him. She wanted him to love her and their child enough to forsake whatever was pulling him away. But the tension grew palpable, like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Sophia's world was about to collide with forces beyond her control. She was inches away from the truth. One final event would fling open the doors to a reality more devastating than she ever could have imagined. The day began like any other, a brisk Manhattan morning with the wind slicing through the canyons of skyscrapers. Michael slipped out of the penthouse at dawn, mumbling something about an early investor meeting. Sophia, bleary-eyed, merely nodded. She'd grown used to his abrupt departures. As the morning hours passed, Sophia made her way to a routine prenatal checkup. Dr. Hoffman performed the ultrasound, pointing out the baby's heartbeat, measuring the tiny limbs. During the exam, he noted Sophia's elevated stress levels, cautioning her to rest more. She promised she would, but deep down, she knew rest was elusive. Anxiety clung to her like a shadow. Later that afternoon, she had an appointment at the Morgan Stanley Collection to finalize details for a major art installation. On her way there, her phone buzzed. It was Lillian Perez. "Sophia, you're not going to believe this," Lillian said, her voice laced with urgency. "I'm working on a feature about upcoming fashion talents in Soho, and guess whose name popped up repeatedly?" Sophia's heart thumped. "Who?" A woman named Natalia Moretti. Lillian continued. "She's launching a boutique, financed by a silent investor. Several sources say the investor is a big shot in finance. Some are whispering it might be Michael." Sophia felt the air rush from her lungs. She pulled over to the curb, hands trembling on the steering wheel. "Are you certain?" she asked, voice strained. "I'm not 100% sure," Lillian admitted, "but it's suspicious. People said the investor took her to Milan, Paris, even gave her a condo. And you have to see the watch she flaunts in some photos. It's the same model Michael wears." Sophia struggled for composure. After the call ended, her mind swirled with 1,000 questions. She decided she couldn't endure the deception any longer. She had to confront Michael with facts, not suspicions. That evening, Michael had promised to attend a dinner hosted by the Guggenheim Foundation, but Sophia doubted he'd show. Determined, she dressed in a sleek black maternity gown that accentuated her pregnancy. She arrived at the Guggenheim's grand lobby, scanning the crowd for Michael's familiar silhouette. To her surprise, he was there, engaged in conversation with a few trustees. Sophia approached him calmly. He greeted her with a forced smile, placing a stiff hand on her back. When the group dispersed, she turned to him and said, "We need to talk." They found a quiet corner near the spiraling ramp of the museum's famed architecture. Under the glow of modern art installations, Sophia spoke in a controlled tone, recounting what Lillian had uncovered. "Tell me everything, Michael," she said. "Don't lie to me again." Trapped by her unwavering gaze, Michael's face paled. For a moment, he considered denial. But something about the tension in the air, the unstoppable momentum of their confrontation, made him realize it was futile. He admitted to an affair, albeit in the vaguest terms, insisting it was just a short-lived fling. "I never meant to hurt you," he muttered. Hurt blossomed on Sophia's face, tears glistening at the corners of her eyes. "How could you do this to us? To our child?" she asked, voice cracking. "What did she mean to you?" Michael's gaze flickered with guilt. He tried to hold her shoulders, but she backed away. "She was just, I don't know, excitement." It got out of hand. Sophia let out a shaky sigh. If there was a time for honesty, this was it. "I want you to break it off right now," she declared. "If you ever cared about me, about our family, end it." Michael swallowed hard. Nodding in solemn agreement, he pulled out his phone and texted Natalia, telling her he needed space, that it was over. Sophia observed, arms crossed, waiting for the confirmation message to send. When a message-delivered sign flashed, Michael said softly, "Done." Tears slipped down Sophia's cheeks. She murmured, "I need time to think about what this means for us." Without waiting for his reply, she left the Guggenheim, stepping into the crisp night air. Her heart felt like it had been ripped apart, yet she also felt a surge of relief, as though acknowledging the truth was the first step toward healing. Unbeknownst to them, this was merely a fleeting calm before the deadliest storm. The tearful confrontation at the Guggenheim might have been the end of the affair, but fate had other, more tragic plans. Natalia, scorned and furious, was about to make a decision that would shake all their lives and lead to a phone call from a morgue none of them ever expected. 1 week later, an icy rain drizzled over Manhattan, casting the city in shades of steel gray. In his office at Harrington Strategic Investments, Michael sat behind a mahogany desk strewn with reports on potential mergers. Yet his mind wasn't on finance. He was riddled with anxiety over how to mend his marriage and quell Natalia's furious messages. Since he broke things off, she'd bombarded him with calls, texts, and voicemails, oscillating between pleading and rage. By noon, he'd mustered the nerve to meet her face-to-face, hoping to finalize a clean break. They arranged to meet at a secluded coffee shop in Tribeca. Natalia arrived first, hunched over a latte, her dark hair glistening with raindrops. When Michael entered, she looked up, eyes red with sleepless frustration. "You said it was over." "Just like that," she spat, voice quivering. "After everything we've been through," Michael sighed, trying to appear calm. "I'm sorry, Natalia. I told you from the start it was complicated. My wife, she's pregnant." Natalia scoffed. "Stop acting like this is all my fault. You promised me a future." His phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. "Things changed," he said, rubbing his temples. "I made a mistake." The conversation escalated. Natalia's voice grew louder, drawing the attention of nearby patrons. She threatened to go public with everything, to call the media, or even show up at Sophia's baby shower. Alarmed, Michael offered to pay her a lump sum to secure her silence. The suggestion made Natalia's face contort with disdain. She accused him of trying to buy her off like a common fling. Slamming her coffee cup onto the saucer, she stormed out into the stormy afternoon. Michael, shaken by the encounter, exhaled heavily before following her outside. He called after her, but she disappeared into a sea of umbrellas. Realizing the futility, he walked back to his private car. The weight of the moment pressed on him. He decided he needed to clear his head. He instructed his driver, Leonard, to take him to the Harrington family lodge upstate, a secluded retreat he used for reflection. The drive was slow, with rain whipping against the car windows. On the highway north of the city, fate struck with cruel suddenness. A massive tractor-trailer lost control on the slick roads, jackknifing into the lane ahead. Leonard tried to brake, but the SUV hydroplaned. Michael had only a second to brace for impact before the collision sent the vehicle spinning. The sickening crunch of metal and shattering glass filled the air. When the car finally stopped, it was wedged against the highway guardrail, passenger side crushed. Leonard was slumped over the wheel, unconscious but still breathing. Michael lay pinned in the back seat, his chest racked with pain. Sirens wailed in the distance. Rain pounded on twisted metal. Time blurred. Emergency responders arrived, racing against the clock to cut Michael free. Under the glare of red and blue lights, paramedics stabilized him, checking for a pulse. Barely conscious, Michael heard snippets of conversation, a medic shouting, "We have a pulse, but it's weak." Another fumbling for an oxygen mask. Then everything faded to black. At the trauma center, doctors fought to save him. They checked Michael's ID and the forms listing his emergency contact. Instead of calling Sophia, they dialed Natalia Moretti's number. She answered, voice trembling, when told Michael Harrington was in critical condition, fighting for his life. Shocked, she rushed to the hospital, weaving through corridors until she found a doctor who explained Michael's injuries were grave. Chest trauma, internal bleeding, a fractured skull. They were prepping him for emergency surgery, though his chances were slim. As Natalia stood there, her phone clutched in white-knuckled fingers, she glanced at the administrative forms. She saw her name in bold as Michael's emergency contact, the authority to make urgent decisions. Her heart pounded. She demanded to be that person, never imagining this scenario. The final blow came at 3:14 a.m., after 4 hours of surgery. Michael Harrington was pronounced dead. Natalia's breath caught in her throat. The doctor's solemn words reverberated in her ears. We did everything we could." She stood frozen in a daze until a nurse quietly asked, "We need someone to contact the family. Are you his wife?" Tears streamed down Natalia's cheeks as realization flooded in. She was the mistress, not the wife. The nurse gently reiterated, "We need next of kin to arrange for the body. Is there someone else we should call?" Hands trembling, Natalia pulled up Sophia's number. The very woman she had threatened to publicly shame was now the only legitimate Harrington relative. The phone rang as the corridor lights buzzed overhead. A new reality was dawning, more agonizing than either woman could have imagined. Sophia's world had just begun to settle into a cautious calm after the Guggenheim confrontation. She'd spent the evening finalizing a short list of baby names, Amelia if it was a girl, Lucas if it was a boy. The phone call she received at nearly 4 in the morning shattered her precarious peace. "Sophia." The voice on the other end was a tearful whisper, barely audible above the hospital's intercom. "It's Natalia." Sophia's heart lurched. Why would Natalia be calling her in the middle of the night? Natalia's words came in gasps. "Michael, there was an accident." Then softer, "He's gone." For a moment, Sophia couldn't process the meaning of those words. Her body went numb, and her mind swirled. She clutched her belly, alarmed. at how her breath came in short, sharp heaves. The unborn baby seemed to sense her turmoil, kicking in protest. Still in her robe, Sophia hurriedly called Lillian, who rushed to accompany her to the hospital. The drive felt interminable. As dawn broke through the buildings, coloring the city, in a pale, grief-stricken light, Sophia approached the hospital's reception desk. Natalia stood nearby, eyes red and swollen. The two women locked gazes, a silent exchange of shared devastation and complicated guilt. "I'm sorry," Natalia managed. "They called me because," she broke off, gesturing at the emergency contact form. "I had to make decisions, but they couldn't save him." Sophia felt as though the floor had dropped out from under her. She wanted to scream, to accuse Natalia of everything, of betrayal, of heartbreak. But in the face of Michael's death, anger crumpled into raw sorrow. She simply wept tears, carving silent paths down her cheeks. The hospital's administrative staff led Sophia to a quiet room. There, a doctor recounted the details: a fatal highway collision, severe internal injuries, an unsuccessful surgery. The words blurred together, each one ringing hollow. Lillian wrapped an arm around Sophia's shoulders as she signed the forms authorizing the release of Michael's body to a funeral home. In the hallway, Natalia hovered, unsure if she should approach. Eventually she whispered, "I'll go. You should be with him." Her voice was thick with remorse. "I never wanted this." Sophia didn't respond. She simply walked past Natalia, guided by Lillian's gentle support. The next hours were a haze of logistic nightmares, arranging the transfer of Michael's remains, contacting family members in Ohio, fielding calls from the Harrington Strategic Investments Board. In a bitter twist, the story of Michael's death hit the financial news by noon. Reporters swarmed, hungry for details about the man behind the philanthropic facade, the father-to-be who wouldn't live to see his child. Sophia retreated to the penthouse, which felt suddenly cavernous and empty. Every room echoed with memories: candlelit dinners, soft laughter, whispered promises. She tried to brace herself for the onslaught of tasks: planning a funeral, handling Michael's estate, answering the board's questions about company shares. But mostly, she needed to hold it together for the sake of her baby. Dr. Hoffman insisted on bed rest for the rest of her pregnancy, alarmed by the spike in her blood pressure and stress levels. While Sophia grappled with shock and grief, Natalia faced her own torment. She realized how pointless her illusions were. The man she believed would stand by her forever was gone. And in that moment she understood that despite all the glitz and secrets, she was just a footnote in Michael Harrington's life story. 2 days later, as funeral preparations got underway, Sophia made a stunning decision. She personally invited Natalia to the private ceremony. Lillian objected, saying it would only fuel gossip, but Sophia insisted. She was there in his final hours, she reasoned. We all have to find closure. The invitation set the stage for a tense and dramatic farewell service. Within the hush of funeral rites, old wounds would be laid bare, truths would be spoken, and a new chapter would begin for the two women connected by one man's tragic choices. Michael Harrington's funeral took place on a bleak winter afternoon at St. Bartholomew's Church in Midtown. The grand arches and stained glass windows, which had witnessed countless sorrowful farewells, seemed to weep with the mourners. Despite Sophia's efforts to keep the service private, hordes of media crews and curious onlookers gathered outside, cameras flashing like frantic fireflies against the gloom. Inside, the pews were filled with a veritable who's who of New York's elite bankers, socialites, philanthropists, even a few politicians. Whispers traveled through the congregation about the rumors that had recently surfaced, Michael's mistress, the abrupt end to his life, and the heartbreak left behind. None of it could overshadow the sorrow that wrapped around the place like a dark veil. Sophia, wearing a simple black dress, sat at the front pew. Her face was pale, strained with grief, and the physical weight of pregnancy. Andrea Reynolds, her attorney, and Lillian offered silent support on either side. Nearby, Michael's parents, an extended family from Ohio, clutched tissues, struggling with the disbelief that their bright boy, the pride of Dayton, was gone. When Natalia arrived, an uneasy hush fell. She wore a demure black coat and veil, her normally radiant beauty diminished by her raw anguish. She hesitated at the door, uncertain if she should even be there. Yet she'd been asked to come by Sophia, a gesture that took everyone by surprise. At the podium, a string quartet played one of Michael's favorite classical pieces, Johann Sebastian Bach's Cello, Suite No. 1, the same music Sophia used to soothe her nerves in the early days of her pregnancy. One by one, friends and colleagues shared eulogies highlighting Michael's talents, his philanthropic efforts, and the visionary drive that built Harrington's strategic investments. By the time Sophia stood to speak, her hands trembled around the paper she'd prepared. "I could speak of Michael's successes," she began, voice wavering, "but that's not what I'll remember. I'll remember the man who insisted we donate to the Dayton Public Library in his hometown because he believed every child deserved a chance at knowledge. I'll remember the laughter and warmth." She paused, a tear sliding down her cheek, and yes, the pain. "He was flawed, as we all are, but he was my husband. He was to be the father of our child." Her voice cracked, forcing her to pause. Cameras discreetly snapped photos. After regaining composure, she finished with a quivering final line. "Wherever you are, Michael, I hope you find peace." As Sophia stepped down, Natalia gathered her courage and unexpectedly walked up to the podium. A ripple of shock ran through the crowd. She cleared her throat, eyes downcast. "I'm not family," she admitted, voice raw, "but I knew Michael in a way that few did. He had dreams larger than life, and sometimes he made mistakes in pursuit of them. I won't stand here and pretend that I didn't contribute to the pain, but I want to say, in his final moments, he wasn't alone." For a fleeting instant, Natalia's eyes met Sophia's. "I'm sorry for all the pain I caused," she whispered, though it was unclear if she was speaking to Sophia, Michael, or herself. Then she bowed her head and stepped away, tears streaming down her face. When the service ended, the casket was carried out, accompanied by the mournful strains of the quartet. Sophia and Natalia exchanged a silent, respectful nod, an acknowledgement of their entwined grief and complicated connection. The media outside clamored for statements, but the two women stayed silent, crossing paths only briefly as they headed towards separate cars. Over the next few weeks, the city buzzed with speculation. Tabloids ran sensational headlines, "Affair exposed," after finance mogul's untimely death. The board at Harrington Strategic Investments scrambled to reassure stockholders. Family members attempted to navigate inheritance and estate divisions. Yet behind the media circus, real lives continued unraveling. Sophia retreated to the penthouse, turning it into a sanctuary of sorts. She blocked out most visitors, focusing on her pregnancy. A swirl of attorneys, bankers, and estate managers offered suggestions. She realized that Michael's death left behind an intricate web of assets and debts, including the expensive condo Natalia was supposed to occupy. Natalia, on the other hand, considered returning to Italy. Her boutique plans in Soho stalled without Michael's financial backing. She sank into debt, her credit cards maxed out. She feared running into Michael's social circle, who either pitied or despised her. During this time, she unexpectedly received a letter, an official notice from Michael's lawyer, scheduled before his death. It contained a partial beneficiary clause awarding Natalia a modest trust fund enough to pay off the condo purchase and jumpstart her boutique. This twist stirred fresh controversy. Why had Michael allocated such funds to a mistress? Had he planned to leave Sophia eventually? Rumors abounded, but only one thing was certain. Each woman had a choice to make: remain locked in bitterness or seek a path to healing. In the months following Michael Harrington's funeral, New York's endless gossip cycle finally moved on, replaced by newer scandals and fresher headlines. But for the two women left, in the wake of his double life, the pain lingered long after the flashbulbs faded. In quiet corners of the city, behind penthouse curtains and boutique glass windows, Sophia and Natalia were forced to live with the consequences of one man's secrets. For Sophia, those days were a blur of emotion. There were moments of stillness when grief suffocated her, followed by flares of anger, moments of calm and deep sadness all over again. The penthouse, once the heart of her marriage, now echoed with silence, broken only by the sounds of a ticking clock and the muffled buzz of distant traffic. She often sat on the edge of her bed, one hand resting gently on her belly, whispering promises to the daughter growing inside her. And then, on a rainy April morning, that promise became real. Sophia gave birth to a healthy baby girl at Mount Sinai Hospital. Her name was Amelia Rose Harrington. The delivery was difficult, prolonged by exhaustion and stress, but the moment Sophia cradled Amelia in her arms, the pain dulled. Her daughter's tiny fingers curled instinctively around her thumb. In that instant, something changed in Sophia. Her grief didn't vanish, but it transformed into purpose. "I will give you the life you deserve," she whispered, kissing Amelia's forehead. "With or without your father." In the weeks that followed, Sophia leaned into motherhood with determination. She reorganized Michael's estate, working alongside attorneys and accountants to ensure that Harrington's strategic investments would survive. The board had been divided. Some questioned her capacity to lead, but many admired her resolve. With Andrea Reynolds by her side, she stepped into meetings with a calm confidence that surprised even her. She wasn't just Michael's widow anymore. She was a mother, an heir to his legacy, and a woman determined to rise. Meanwhile, the city that had once felt like a battlefield slowly began to feel like home again. Each morning, Sophia would wheel Amelia's stroller down the tree-lined paths of Central Park. She would smile at strangers, engage in quiet conversations with other new mothers, and find healing in small, consistent routines. It was not the life she had imagined, but it was hers now. Then, one afternoon in early June, a call from the doorman startled her. "Miss Harrington," he said, his voice uncertain. "There's a woman here asking to see you, a Miss Moretti." Sophia's breath caught in her throat. She hesitated. "Send her up," she finally said, her voice low. When the elevator doors opened, Natalia stepped out, subdued and visibly nervous. She clutched a small box in her hands. Her eyes found Amelia immediately resting peacefully in a bassinet and filled with something between admiration and remorse. "She's beautiful," Natalia whispered, stopping a few feet away. Sophia nodded, gesturing for her to sit. The silence between them stretched long. The last time they'd spoken had been in a hospital hallway, raw, devastated, and shocked. But this moment felt different. There was no more man between them, just truth. Natalia placed the box on the coffee table. "It's for the baby," she said softly. Inside was a delicate silver rattle, engraved with the initials A.R.H. It shimmered under the soft penthouse lighting, a gesture that seemed at once heartfelt and filled with guilt. They sipped tea in near silence until Natalia finally broke it. "I'm returning the condo," she said, her voice steady. "I don't want it anymore. I tried contacting your legal team, but they said something about a trust, how Michael structured everything." Sophia tilted her head, watching her. "Legally, it's yours. Michael set that up. I won't fight it." "I don't want it," Natalia said quickly. "Not after everything. I'll sell it. I'm moving to Italy back home. I'm going to open a boutique. A small one. Nothing flashy." Sophia nodded slowly. "That sounds like a good idea." Natalia looked down. "I'm sorry, I didn't expect this, any of this. If I could go back." Sophia let her words hang. "You can't," she said gently. "Neither can I. But maybe we can choose something better for what comes next." It wasn't forgiveness, not quite, but it was something close. Natalia's eyes welled up. She stood slowly. "Thank you for letting me see her." Sophia followed her to the door, holding Amelia in her arms. "Take care, Natalia. You too." As the elevator doors closed, a strange sense of peace settled in the apartment. 2 months later, news quietly emerged that Natalia Moretti had opened her boutique in Rome. She named it Rinascita Rebirth in Italian. The boutique sold ethically sourced, high-fashion garments, and she donated a portion of proceeds to women's shelters. It was her way of starting over. Meanwhile, Sophia accepted a position as director of the Harrington Foundation's philanthropic division. She refocused their mission on two things: maternal health and arts education. She poured her energy into these causes, giving voice to her own journey while helping countless others. On Sunday mornings, she'd walk Amelia to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. They would sit by the fountain in the courtyard where Sophia once confronted Michael. Now it was a place of peace. She'd tell Amelia stories about her father, not just the lies, but the good too. His brilliance, his ambition, his flaws, because life was messy, but it moved forward. Eventually, the tabloids forgot. The public remembered Michael Harrington more for his contributions to finance and philanthropy than for his affair. And the women he left behind, they built new lives stronger than before. Every day, Sophia saw hope in her daughter's eyes, a legacy not built on betrayal, but on the strength to rise again. Through scandal, heartbreak, and the cruel hand of fate, Sophia and Natalia found themselves sharing a bond neither could have foreseen. In the wake of Michael Harrington's death, they each faced a choice: remain trapped in bitterness or carve out new paths toward healing. Despite betrayal and loss, hope emerged through motherhood for Sophia and reinvention for Natalia. Their stories stand as a testament that even in the darkest shadows, we can seek light, meaning, and a fresh start. If you found this story compelling, filled with twists, heartbreak, and a resolve for second chances, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your support helps us bring more captivating tales to life. Leave a comment below on what you think about the choices these characters made, and let us know what stories you'd like to see next. Together, let's share in the power of storytelling.